Thank you. In 2011, I served as the representative of the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, the OSCE, of which the United States and Canada are also participating states, for combating racism, xenophobia, and religious discrimination. And I organized a conference in Rome, attended by representatives of some 50 countries, that adopted the Rome model. And when I heard the Rome model mentioned by scholars and diplomats today, I'm always very happy. The Rome model posits that religious prejudice operates in three subsequent stages: intolerance, which is a cultural phenomenon. Religious minorities are slandered by the media and the culture. Discrimination, religious minorities are attacked through laws and administrative measures. And finally, violent physical persecution. We saw this in Nazi Germany. The Jews were slandered through books, articles, cartoons, movies, preparing the ground for the Nuremberg laws of discrimination. And when even these laws were regarded as not effective enough, Auschwitz followed. We can't believe that intolerance is less dramatic than persecution, but we need to stop prejudice at the level of intolerance. When persecution comes, it's just too late. So very shortly, I will mention three contemporary features of intolerance. The first is labeling, particularly through the use of the word cult or functional equivalent, such as sect in French, secta in Russia, sejao in Chinese. Scholars of religions have long established that in reality there are no cults. Cult is just a label utilized to stigmatize and discriminate against groups powerful lobbies do not like. Of course, there are criminal religionists and criminal religious groups, both within mainline traditions, such as pedophile priests or terrorists who abuse the name of Islam, and within new traditions. But using the word cults doesn't solve any problems and only confuses the situation. Second, intolerance today works often by accusing groups labeled as cults to solicit extravagant donations, having an excessive interest in money, or avoiding taxes. In some cases, these accusations are false. In other cases, it is not clarified that the same practices also go on within mainline religions, not only new religions. But accusations that donations are collected illicitly and of tax evasion are a powerful tool of discrimination, as we have seen throughout the world in cases involving, for example, the Jehovah's Witnesses and Taiji men. Third, and to me most alarming, we are witnessing today the kind of confidence trick card sharpers utilize in country fairs. You know, when the cards are switched very quickly, the card on the right goes to the left, the card on the left goes on the right. And whenever there is an incident or crime, more or less vaguely connected with a group labeled as cult and discriminated, cards are immediately switched and victims are confused with perpetrators. Let me give in conclusion two examples. One happened here in South Korea a few days ago. A husband killed the wife, and while he was at it, also killed the brother-in-law who tried to defend the wife. And this man hated a new religious movement called Shincheonji, and the day before committed the crime, he had consulted with deprogrammers, people involved in kidnapping you heard about. Now, it's not important what opinion you have of Shincheonji as a religion. What is important here is a woman and a man were killed, and immediately anti-cult association called press conferences blaming the victims and blaming Shincheonji and saying if the wife had not joined Shincheonji, this poor man should now not face a trial and possibly spend the rest of his life in jail. Not a word of compassion about the victims and the card switching. The perpetrators are exchanged with the victims and the process of the victims follow. Second case you already heard about is the Abe assassination in Japan. We all know the killer was not a member of the Family Federation. The killer hated the Family Federation with a vengeance, and he even planned to assassinate Mother Moon. But least they will be accused of turning the feeble head of the killer with their hate campaigns against the Unification Church and the Family Federations. The greedy lawyers we just heard about in previous speeches immediately called press conferences and switched the cards and tried to change the process of the killer and the process of those who inspired him into the process of the victims and the process of the Unification Church and the Family Federation. We should say it very clearly. We will not tolerate this. This cannot be tolerated, just as we cannot tolerate when a woman is raped that somebody says perhaps it was her fault. Perhaps she was dressed not conservatively enough. And here, it's the same phenomenon. Let me say it very clearly, it's not a mistake. These people are not simply wrong. These people are aiding and abetting those committing hate crimes. Now, the victims, in their shock, sometimes they simply say, look, I'm the victim, somebody switched the cards, I'm not the perpetrator. This is understandable and true, but it's not good enough. The victims should name and shame the card sharks and those who try to change the reality, and we should help them. And it is possible to help them. Some of my friends and I, we succeeded in recent incidents in changing the narratives through scholarly studies, white papers, and the daily magazine on religious liberty, Bitter Winter. I started in 2018, mostly about China, but now with an international session. I believe the help is possible, and to Mother Moon, who suffered so much for slander during all her life, to the many who consider themselves children of Reverend and Mrs. Moon, and to all of you who have been slandered and persecuted and discriminated. I believe from this conference a clear message should be lodged. You are not alone. Your fight is not alone. We will fight with you, and eventually we will win. Thank you.